Hello, it's me, Canoopsy, and this is my review of Lenovo's ThinkPad, a thin and super light laptop aimed mainly at businesses and those looking for a portable, fast, and well-built Windows Ultrabook. So, my unit has a Skylake Intel Core i5 6300U processor at 2.5 GHz. There's also Intel HD 520 graphics, 8GB of RAM, and a 256GB Opal 2 SATA SSD. And this specific model retails for around $1,300 US and is around $2,100 Canadian. Ouch. This laptop is actually very configurable too, so you can add more RAM and a different SSD, and bump up the processor to an Intel i7. The laptop itself looks like a standard but very sleek ThinkPad laptop. While you'd expect a business-y laptop to look boring and unattractive, in this case it's the opposite. The T460S looks like a stealthy, swift laptop from the outside. It's about 17mm thick and weighs 3.1 pounds, so carrying it daily, you'll barely even notice it. For ports on this laptop, it has pretty much everything you'll ever need. First, we have a Kensington lock port. Next, a port for a SIM card, so you can actually use your SIM card with this laptop for internet on the go. There's an Ethernet port, a USB 3 port, a full HDMI port, a mini display port, a second USB 3 port, and an optional smart card reader. On the other side, the charging port, a third USB 3 port, the headphone jack, and an SD card slot. Sadly, no USB-C in sight. At the bottom, there is a connector to use with Lenovo's Ultra Dock, which gives you more ports and better functionality. Also at the bottom are the stereo speakers, with Dolby Home Theater improvements that provide a great, loud listening experience with a decent amount of bass. So finally, opening up the laptop is just about possible with one hand. Out of every single laptop that I've reviewed, this one actually opens with one hand. Great job, Lenovo. Once it's open, you're greeted with the 14-inch 1080p IPS LCD anti-glare touchscreen display. Although, if you don't need the touchscreen, you can actually get a version without it, or get a higher resolution 2560 by 1440 version that lacks touch as well. The display itself is overall pretty good, but has one single flaw. It's not very bright. Colors are not insanely vibrant but look good and accurate, blacks are nice and contrasty, and the sharpness is definitely there too. While this may not be the best display for video watching and content enjoyment, it does a job for pretty much everything else, but I would like to see a bit more brightness. Since it is a touchscreen laptop, touch response is perfect. For most touchscreen laptops, the display is always covered in fingerprints, but here they're basically invisible somehow. Above the display is the surprisingly good 720p webcam that gives you great overall picture and video quality for a laptop webcam, so I'm very impressed. Looking at the keyboard and trackpad, these are some of the strongest points of this laptop, and most other ThinkPad series laptops as well. The keyboard is one of the best I've ever used besides the small amount of flex. The key travel is excellent and the keys just generally feel great. There's 2 levels of brightness for the backlighting and also a range of function keys that do things like opening the settings or quickly muting your microphone, so some really great functionality. In the center of the keyboard is of course the classic red ThinkPad pointing stick. Now for the trackpad, it's also top notch. Above it, you have the keys to use with the pointing stick, which are nice and responsive. The trackpad itself is plastic but offers a great click, but does have a slightly cheap feel to it at times. Next to it is a fingerprint scanner to unlock your laptop, and it works about 80% of the time and it's fairly useful and quick. For performance, the T460S is a nice overall fluid performer, but in tests like Cinebench, it doesn't receive the highest scores. And using Crystal Disk Mark, read and write speeds for the SSD are quite low, so you may want to look at the faster and more expensive PCIe SSD model or install one in the machine for yourself. This is obviously not a gaming laptop, but for games like Minecraft and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, they perform well in lower settings, but higher settings, it gets a bit choppy. These are lighter games, but anything more intensive will be an issue. For heat, the laptop only gets warm at the left side, but stays very cool and quiet most of the time. So performance for heavier tasks like these seems a bit mixed, but for light things like web browsing, email, Microsoft Office, casual gaming, and very light photo editing, this machine will do the job very well. And lastly, battery life. This laptop has 2 batteries inside. One is 23.5 watt hours and one is 26 watt hours. And sadly, this ThinkPad does lose the replaceable battery functionality present on past ThinkPads. Lenovo claims around 10 hours of usage, and this isn't exactly true, but I got very close with around 6 to 7 hours of usage every day. I did have it on full brightness though. Standby, however, is incredible, with the laptop lasting for days, even with tons of juice when woken up. To conclude, Lenovo's ThinkPad T460S is a great step forward for Lenovo's line of ThinkPad laptops. The design is thin, light, and sleek. It has a great keyboard and trackpad, plenty of ports, and performs well enough for most tasks. The only negative being the price. It can get a bit expensive expensive, especially after customizing specifications. But overall, the package you get here is classic ThinkPad, a well-built, solid, and extremely usable laptop. What do you think of Lenovo's ThinkPad T460S? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts, like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching.